Gender and related concepts. Okay. Sex and gender. What is sex? What is gender? How to differentiate between these two concepts? Why is it important to distinguish both these concepts? Let us know about the concept, the sex, and the gender. Sex is the biological differences between the female and the male at a basic level. Human beings are either born as male or female for the most part, although there is a very small segment of babies that present a mixed anatomical distribution. Biological differences of the female and the male reflect in the chromosomes. Male have the XY and the female are the XX. Sex organs, hormones, and the other physical features. We need medical interventions in order to change the sex. When we think of biology and the biological difference, we also need to keep in mind that biology, like other area of the knowledge, is also not absolute or fixed. The instance or the occurrence of intersex should make us aware of the dangers of the biological essentialism. Biological essentialism. Unlike sex, gender is socially constructed. Let us see how this social construction happens once the baby is born. Social structures such as family, society, and other socio-cultural practices determine differences based on the sex of the child. The differences include clothing, behavior, social role, position, identity, and responsibility. In this way, gender is constructed and practiced. Let us examine the terms sex and gender using examples and the real life stories when a newborn baby arrives. Entire family celebrates the enthusiasm. Celebration differs based on sex differences of the newborn baby. First, the family and the society determine clothes for the baby following a pattern of the color coding. If it is a female child, they tend to buy pink clothes and toys related to cooking and dolls. At the time, if the child is male, they buy blue clothes and toys like car and bike. The family and society also creates the conditioned responses which are different from male and the male, female and the male children. The little girl is called a pretty little angel, and the little boy is told to be brave and strong and not cry, since crying is seen as a female attribute. In this way, gender is constructed from the moment a child is born. Gender is also constructed in different societies in different ways. They mainly focus on the expected roles to be played by the female and the male. For imposing these roles on male and female child, the socialization process plays a significant role. The differences include the productive and the reproductive roles, paid and unpaid work, power relation, politics. Gender roles and the codes are questioned, and existing roles and relations of the men and women are also challenged and the change. Society imposes certain roles on the man and the woman. Social challenge and the change condition women to act only in certain ways and carry out roles, that is productive and the reproductive roles. For example, society imposes reproductive roles on women like caring and nurturing. Social condition of women to realize that they are more suitable for reproductive roles. rather than the productive or community. The following case studies you different pictures. Late Kalpana Chawla wanted to be an astronaut space scientist after completing her engineering degree in India. Due to her insistence, her parents allowed her to go to the US to become an astronaut. Like her, Miss Pavitra wants to be a pilot after completing her 12th standard. She comes from lower income strata. Her father works as a bus conductor in the state transport corporation. She has to fight at two levels. She needs to find necessary financial resources to pursue her passion to become a pilot. Secondly, she has to convince her parents that she can also become a pilot and also operate a flight like man. She does not want to study female centric profession. The above real life case studies demonstrate how gender is constructed and how women can reverse their productive roles. Both the women struggled at multiple levels to convince family and other social structures to pursue their passion. They proved that their productive roles are gender neutral. Both men and women can do all types of work. The expectations adhere to gender related behavior roles, identity, professions are called gender stereotyping. Expectations adhere to gender related behavior roles, identity, and professions. Gender stereotyping. Gender roles. Biological difference between sexes do not normally change unless there is a medical intervention. However, women and men perceive their own characteristics, roles, and responsibilities in a particular way which does not flow out of sexual difference. It is assigned to them based on the perceived differences, that is, it is a social construction. These rules differ in a different societies based on the cultural system that is prevailing there. Example patriarchy. Gender roles demand that activities assigned to men and women are based on these differential perceptions. The role differences similarly lead to selecting occupations. The term division of labor used in the social sciences. And gender and women studies to indicate roles and responsibilities of the men and women. So, gender roles are purely assigned and not based on their skills. Broadly speaking, men roles are related to the economic activities and is accounted in the SNA system of national accounts. Men roles. While women's roles are related to the care and nurturing, these may not be taken into account in SNA. However, men may not perform domestic work. According to Carolyn Moser, women are triply burdened in most of the developing countries. Carolyn Moser. They perform three types of roles, that is reproductive, productive, and community managing, and the community politics. Reproductive, productive, community managing. Reproductive roles include the childbearing, child rearing, taking care of elders in the family, and household work. Along with the reproductive roles, women perform productive roles as secondary income earners. The economic activities performed the economic activities performed by women are not accounted as the economic activities. It is not included in the SNA. The productive roles include part-time economic activities, agriculture, wage earners, taking care of milch animals, and involving in informal sectors in urban areas. Apart from the above two, women are involved in the community managing and the community politics. It is considered as an extension of productive work. The activities and roles include provision and maintenance of community assets for collective consumption. They are also involved in the healthcare and education of the entire community. Community roles in politics performed by women are not paid. Unlike women, men do not perform community politics and the activities, but they get paid better either as a cash or kind. In many societies, women also carry out productive activities and maintaining of small pieces of land, agriculture plots for the farming system, and animal husbandry. These tasks are often not considered as work and are often unpaid. Women may also perform many roles which attract wages in both the formal and the informal economic sectors. But women's economically productive roles, in contrast to men's, are often undervalued or given relatively little recognition. Gender roles and responsibilities vary among cultures and can change over time. For example, in India, unskilled labor is considered women works, while in Africa it is men's work. Unskilled labor considered as women's work in India. In Europe and the US, the contributions of the men in domestic activities are becoming increasingly important and visible. Based on the roles and activities of the men and women, the needs of the women and the men, identifying roles and needs and incorporating the same in the plans or policies are important. Masculinity. The word masculinity derives from the Latin word masculins, which means male person or male, और masculus. ये दरवाज़ा बंद करना. ये वाला. Masculus. It was first used in the 14th century. To denote the male sex. The word used more often to refer to the characteristics of the men. The masculine characters are the powerfulness, strength, force, manhood, and the manliness. The scholarly work on masculinities in the 1960s and the 1970s understood that the perceived and the internalized attributes determined masculine identity. The cultural norms and values acquired to socialization process may influence the acquiring of the masculine characteristics like the aggression, ambition, analytical ability, and assertiveness. The scholarly paper written by the Raven Connell in 1979 discusses social construction of bodies in the boys. Social construction of bodies. Boys give importance to sports in the school years. They concentrate on the development of physique, force, and strength. He further elaborated that the drive towards developing masculine attributes among boys and men is an important part of the socialization process. Femininity. It is culturally constructed collection of the qualities, behavior, appearance, attributes, feature, characteristics, postures associated with the woman. It is not natural but is constructed and socially produced. The French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, Simone, the 1949, wrote that one is not born but rather becomes a woman. According to Judith Butler in the performativity theory, the repeated acts of the performance create the illusion of femininity that becomes naturalized and constructs gender and feminine identities. The study on the femininity concentrates on the neoliberalism, culture, caste, and other social structure and how these structures inhibit women's freedom, opportunities, oppression, and gender inequalities. For example, women are the driving force behind employment in European Union recently. Still, there is a gender gap in pay parity. Majority of the world poor are women across the globe. Also, the evidence from the Esther Buzarb work on Africa culture pattern in her book African agriculture pattern. In her book Women's Role in Economic Development. Clearly brings out women's involvement in food production, but ownership of land is with men in most of the societies according to FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. Public and the private distinction. The public private dichotomy forces women to be confined at home and that restricts their movements. It further enforces women to perform domestic roles and cares and as a caregiver givers and nurtures. Public and the private dichotomy determine women's material independence and access to education. Questioning of the Public and the private has been central to women's struggle for suffrage and equal participation in other spheres of the life. Suffrage. Private relates to the activities within domestic realm and public comprises of the activities situated outside of the domestic sphere. Feminists consider this distinction hierarchical and the patriarchal. This division leads to the woman's subservient roles and status. Subservient roles. The separation of women to private sphere because of her reproductive roles and locate men in the domains for the economy, business, politics and law is in public sphere. Now patriarchy. Patriarchy is defined as the rule of the male and the rule of the male and father. It is considered as an institution. The patriarchal institution perpetuates domination of the male and subordinates the female. The dominant power relations operate at different levels in the society and discriminate against the female and the male girls at the levels of the. This discrimination not only leads to curtailing of the opportunities and undermining the woman's agency, it may produce violence against women. Patriarchy further demarcates and insists that the private sphere is for women and the public sphere is for the men. The public private dichotomy forces women to be confined at home. These restrictions have the important consequences for women's material independence and access to education. Patriarchy norms are the prevalent in social structures like the family, society, politics, government, media, and religion. In the patriarchal society, the inheritance of the wealth passes to the son and is called the patrilineage. In the patriarchal tradition and the patriarchal system, women are supposed to come to husband's house and live there after marriage. Stereotyping. Gender stereotyping is nothing but reinforcing the feminine and the masculine qualities and attributes again and again. We have already seen masculine and the feminine qualities and characters. Gender stereotypes are the belief which prescribe that what man and woman should and what they can do. It can be changed over a period of time, but changes are very slow. Women are supposed to be caring and nurturing, kind, warm, and they should be interested in the children. The above said qualities are perceived for women in most of the societies. The qualities like the intelligence and the valued in the both men and women. In the South Asian societies, women should be presentable and dressed properly, and they must be proficient in the household chore. With regard to profession, girls in the Asian societies are encouraged to take the traditional professions like the teaching or medicine predominantly, which are related to reproductive roles, that is, caring and nurturing. Other qualities prescribed for the woman as gender stereotypes are the physical appearance. Society expects women to be thin, but there is no gender stereotyping on men about weight. Rudman the Fairchild studied in the Rudman Fairchild study in the year 2004 showed that men who scored high in femininity knowledge test declined to share their score. Most of the comedy cinemas and the television serials portray men with the masculine qualities. Women are mostly shown as the dependent and they perform reproductive roles in the popular cinema and the television. Okay. Saloni Malhotra is founder of a company called the Desi Crew. It is a socially motivated business process outsourcing BPO company. It provides the information technology enabled services to the rural area. The service delivery centers of the company operate in the villages. Her company first trained the youth in the rural areas on the computer operations. After that, the training youth will be the appointed in the company. She wants to address the rural urban migration. Unlike her parents, she studied engineering. My Sony says my desire to work in the rural India was reconfirmed at the engineering college when one of my colleagues at the college, Pallavi from the rural Maharashtra, one day proudly told me she was going to study computer sciences. Later, I learned that the poor girl had very little access to the computer. She just believed that studying computer sciences would help her gain a well paid job and the benefits which follow. Pallavi made me realize that she and I had one thing in common. We lack exposure in each other worlds. When we think of jobs for the rural areas, we think of agriculture or handicrafts and ignore opportunities in the high tech areas. Young graduates from the arts, engineering, or commerce flocks to cities. Female employment opportunities at the rural area increase of the self-esteem of the girls. This encourages more parents to invest in the girls' education in the rural area. Feminism. It is a movement. It challenges the causes for questioning the inferior status of women. The movement demands challenge the cause for equal status for men and women. It is also an ideology that works towards empowering women. It is a collective consciousness empowering women. Collective. Any individual or collective can strive for gender equality, gender equity, and fight against expression, oppression, injustice, exploitation, violence against women. The term feminist is first used in the French medical text in 1871. French medical text in 1871. Feminism was process classified based on the movements that emerged in the various historical periods. The period for first wave feminism was late 19th and the early 20th. During that period, they fought for the women's suffrage. The second wave feminist activities were in the 1960s and the 1970s. They concentrated on the women's equal rights in families, workplace, and on sexuality. In the beginning of the 1990s, the third wave feminism started and it is continuing till now. Feminists and the feminists are categorized into liberal, Marxist, radical, socialist, psychoanalytical, postmortem, modern, and the ecofeminism, feminism of the color and so, gender-based violence. It is a differential expressions of the violence according to own sex, race, class, religion, sexuality, ability, and the other situating factors. The battered movement of the 1970s, which emerged as part of the second wave feminism, contributed much to the emergence of the concept of the GBV. The UN Decade for the Women and the Feminists were the instrumental in the addressing the GBV issues at the global and the national level. The four international women's conferences were recognized. This makes the national governments to begin assistive policies to address GBV. Sexual harassment. It is gender based discrimination at the workplace and also at the public and private domain. This includes the showing sexually colored objects, touching, teasing, demand for sexual favors. It affects victims badly. A study conducted among 500 respondents and found that more than half had experienced sexual harassment at workplace in the Singapore. Naila Kabir defined empowerment as the expansion in the people's ability to make strategic life choices in a context where this ability was previously denied to them. She elaborates three dimensions of empowerment: resources, agency, achievement. In this process of empowerment, both women and the men take control over their lives. They set their own agendas, they gain skills, they build self confidence, they solve their problems and develop self reliance. The following case study further explain the concept of empowerment. Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan MKSS, founded in the 1990. The meaning of the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan is the organization for the power of laborers and the farmers in Hindi. The organization is founded by the three social activists, activists, activists. It located in one of the most backward areas in the state of Rajasthan. It works for the ensuring poor people's right. The member of MKSS are predominantly from the low socio-economic strata. They belong to small and the marginal farmers. It mobilized people and conducted community and village level meetings such as demonstration and the Jan Sunwais is a participatory social audit in which government officials are brought face to face with citizens in a public gathering. The village people, especially daily wages and government projects and the applicants of the anti-poverty plan, ask questions and verify official government's records. If they find discrepancies, they pose questions to the officials. Such Jan Sunwais often result in the public exposure of the corrupt practices of the officials, giving people a voice to raise locally relevant issues and demand transparency in administration leads to the empowerment. The efforts of the MKSS contributed significantly to the implementation of the Right to Information Act in the Rajasthan. Its success has inspired people in other Indian states to demand the passage of a similar Right to Information Act in their states. This case study is adopted from the World Bank.